Welcome. My name is Sue McCleaf-Nespeca, and on this video I will be sharing some suggested books to accompany one of the 5 Every Child Ready to Read practices. In this instance, reading. The books I'm going to recommend in this tape are for children from birth through age 3. First, a few general tips about reading to babies and young toddlers. Research shows that there are 3 things that are great indicators for a child to have later success in learning to read. And those 3 things are reading to children from birth, having books present in the home, and having an adult be a reading model to the child. So we want to encourage parents to read to babies at different times during the day. Does not have to be 30 minutes at one time. It can be a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there throughout the day. Parents also need to make sure that all reading experiences are positive. It doesn't matter if a baby is looking around every which way and not focusing on the page. They're still hearing your voice. They're still hearing words. However, if the baby is crying and extremely unhappy, then recommend to parents that they stop and try again at another time. We want to use board books with heavy board pages. This is what we need to recommend to parents. And rounded edges. I'm amazed at how many board books for young children do not necessarily have the rounded edges. The rounded edges are better so they're not dangerous for babies. And we use those board books until a child can handle books with paper pages. I think it's important to encourage parents to recite nursery rhymes and poems with their children often. And that's what we should do in baby story times or programs for young toddlers. Just use a lot of nursery rhymes and poetry. Mem Fox has a quote in her book Reading Magic that says, "Literacy experts suggest that children who know 8 nursery rhymes by heart by age 4 will be among the best readers by the time they reach age 8. So that's something to keep in mind. Rhymes help children understand basic structures and patterns of speech. And silly rhymes and poems, it doesn't matter if they make sense. If you think about it, a lot of the Mother Goose nursery rhymes do not make a lot of sense. Children enjoy the sound of the rhyming words and the repetitious phrases. So in your baby or young toddler story times, make sure you share a lot of nursery rhymes and poems for young children, and also encourage parents to do the same. So let's highlight a couple of those good books. This is a classic. Every library should have it. It's called My First Mother Goose, and this is actually the 20th, well, last year was the 20th, and 2016 was the 20th anniversary edition of this, so they re-released it. Very colorful illustrations by Rosemary Wells, and the collection is edited by Iona Opie. Again, it's a wonderful book to recommend to parents. It would make a great book to give to parents of newborns, and then encourage them, of course, to share these Mother Goose rhymes. Now, by the same team of Opie and Rosemary Wells, we actually have a board book called 1, 2, 3 Mother Goose. Again, has padded board pages, rounded edges, and it contains actually 14 different counting and number rhymes, Mother Goose rhymes. So the sturdy pages would be really good for a parent to hold a baby in the lap and share this with them. Maybe easier than the one that I just showed you with the paper pages. This is a beautifully illustrated book of Mother Goose rhymes by David McPhail. It's called A Collection of Favorite Rhymes, Songs, and Concepts. And again, it has nursery rhymes, it has songs, introduces some simple concepts such as colors and numbers and shapes. So I think you could share several of these nursery rhymes or songs from the book in story time, actually, and have parents join in and add some simple motions. I think that would be a good way to get across to parents the importance of sharing rhymes and songs with babies on a daily basis. Here's one by Jane Yolen called We Rhymes, and it's baby's first book of poetry. There are more than 50 playtime rhymes, dinner time, bedtime, bath time, and more in this collection. Most of these are new poems. Now, these are not necessarily Mother Goose rhymes. These are new poems written, but also a few old favorites. Again, I think this would make a wonderful gift to give to a parent of a very young child. Also by Jane Yolen, we have Here's a Little Poem. And this is it's called A Very First Book of Poetry. So again, for babies, toddlers, there's over 60 short poems arranged in categories that children can relate to, like me, myself, and I, who lives in my house, I go outside, or time for bed. I honestly think you can find a poem in here that would go with almost any themed story time you would have. Like there's a poem called Dressing Too Quickly, which would be wonderful to use with a getting dressed theme. There's one called Cat Kisses, if you're doing a story time theme of cats. Or Rickety Train Ride for a transportation theme. Or there's several bedtime rhymes if you do a bedtime story time. So a nice collection there. Another collection by Michael Rosen called A Great Big Cuddle, Poems for the Very Young. This has 36 poems that celebrate language play, from nonsense verses to poems filled with sounds. The various themes are ones that I think will appeal to young children, and I think the expressive illustrations are a lot of fun to look at. I love Marla Frazee. She's won she's won a Caldecott medal. She illustrated this book called Everywhere Babies. And it really does have tons of babies in the book. Some of the most delightful babies you'll have ever seen. There's a rhyming text. It accompanies pictures of babies who are playing or sleeping or crawling or doing all those wonderful things that babies actually do. It is a book with rhyming text, which is wonderful for young children because, again, that helps with phonological awareness. 10 Little Fingers and 10 Little Toes is by Mem Fox. She's the person I told you about the quote earlier with the nursery rhymes. And this is illustrated by Helen Oxenberry. Again, very child-appealing illustrations. And it is all about the fact that babies have 10 little fingers and 10 little toes. Listen to the beginning of the book. There was one little baby who was born far away, and another one who was born on the very next day. And both of these babies, as everyone knows, had 10 little fingers and 10 little toes. It's a really sweet book. The last two lines, the 10 little fingers, 10 little toes, repeat throughout this rhyming story. It's a great choice. You could share it in story time. And here's one. It's called A Bedtime Tale. If I Were a Kangaroo. Again, a perfect bedtime book describing all the bedtime rituals of various animals. And we see how all those little animals go to bed. Like there's the kangaroo and the baby kangaroo. So we talk about all these bedtime rituals, and then we get to the very end of the book where it is a human who is helping her little baby to bed. She says, I'll count your fingers and your toes and kiss you gently on your nose. Then tuck you in and hug you tight and whisper, I love you. Good night. Now, on the back of this book, and I have to admit, this would really kind of be for older children, maybe children that are 2.5, 3, but it has some more information about those different animals that were talked about earlier in the book. The last book I'd like to talk about is called The Everything Book. It has everything in it. It is by Denise Fleming, who makes her own paper, and the book is very bright. It's very colorful, which is going to be very appealing to young children. Okay, what is the everything that's in this book? Well, we have ABCs, we have 1, 2, 3s, we have colors, we have shapes, we have nursery rhymes, we have finger games, We have seasons. Here's a 5 little chicken rhyme. Here is like a point and say of mealtime. Here is colors, point and say of kitchen. Here's shapes, the letters of the alphabet, the counting, the traffic light rhyme. Again, everything. Choo-choo train. This makes a wonderful gift book because what I like about this is if you would give this or tell parents it might be a good book to give to a new parent, what I like about it, the book kind of grows along with the child. There's some things that are done in here that are really specific for young babies, but then there's some things that are good for 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. So the book kind of grows along with the child. It's one they can keep for several years, and it'll have a benefit for that young child for several years. So again, it's the Everything book by Denise Fleming. Well, I want to thank you for joining me for these book suggestions on reading for children ages 0 to 3. Thank you.